Good morning. It's really invigorating to be here. It's amazing to hear the stories from Flavio and from Gerd and to see how, in Jeff Moore's terms, they really are riding the next wave. And I'm delighted to be back in person with so many of you. I'm going to show you a lot of new things, and I can't wait to see what you'll do with them. Now, earlier this morning, Scott talked about the power of the Smart Data Fabric. We introduced this really about a year ago as a concept, and I now see customers in every segment, every vertical, every sub-vertical really doing it. You've seen some stories today. There's a lot more stories behind that. And that's really, at one level, the same software and the same capabilities you already know by a slightly different name. At another level, it's completely different because it's using the capabilities as services across different patterns of data use with common governance, with common, if you will, data plane, control plane concepts. Now, I call these data microservices because if you've ever worked with microservices architecturally, you know that they tend to get clunky when you're working with large amounts of data at high speed. Each service wants their own copy of the data, and that really doesn't scale well. And that's where InterSystems Iris comes in. The services in InterSystems Iris, they're all pre-integrated. They're built together in a common framework. They have common governance. They have common management. And we are really passionate about building these out and making them effective in this kind of smart data fabric pattern. We've continued to evolve the multi-model database capabilities that many of you have known from Cache, but as you'll see, it's gotten much, much faster, much, much better. We've added many new facilities, such as new machine learning facilities with integrated ML, lots of new analytics facilities. We've released independent modules like the InterSystems API Manager, InterSystems Cloud Manager, InterSystems Kubernetes Operator, the system alerting and monitoring module, adaptive analytics, as well as new development environments such as our IDE with VS Code Object Script. Quick show of hands, all of that alphabet soup that I talked about, who has not heard of these before? Is there anything that I said that you hadn't heard of? That is great. Because we're building these out on, in some ways, a quite rapid clip. And of course, we're making everything work in a different deployment environment, in the cloud, sometimes multi-cloud, sometimes hybrid with on-prem, while still keeping incredible performance. And that is why we think that InterSystems Iris is a great platform for implementing these smart data fabrics. It's got this remarkable range of capabilities built in, and we can optimize the performance and footprint under the hood so you can focus on running your business. Now, Scott showed these 5 key investment areas a little bit earlier. I first introduced these at the last physical Global Summit, which was, 3 years ago. But really, the focus that InterSystems has in these areas dates way back before that. This is a way of organizing and making sure that we are focused on these areas release after release with continual innovation. That in the developer experience area, we provide you guys with a delightful experience to rapidly build these powerful applications. In interoperability, that we translate this whole protocol Tower of Babel in healthcare and in other industries. That we provide integration not just on a message basis, but also API basis and device basis. Of course, working in the cloud, but also fitting well into modern DevOps frameworks. Analytics is an area we've been really focused on to add into the transactional workloads many of you run, an ability to do both native and open analytics without moving the data. And last but not least, speed, scale, and security is an area we're truly passionate about. And when I talk to customers about what they appreciate about InterSystems Iris, I hear answers back in all of these areas, but I always hear about speed and safety, about the ability to run at the incredibly large transaction volumes you've heard about from both BBTS and SPAR, and from Tabcorp and many other customers, but to do so safely. So these themes you'll hear from us continually, release after release. And the newest release that's out is imaginatively called 2022.1. This came out at the beginning of June after about a 3.5-month preview program, and I want to thank you for helping us in that preview program. It's the first time we really have done continual updates. We had a record number of downloads. We had a lot of good feedback, both about how to make the software better, but how to help you adopt this into your development process. And some people just downloaded it and played with it to get a sense of what's coming and make their own product plans. As of today, we now have 2022.2 in preview. And Scott took you through the highlights of that earlier today. I won't belabor that, but you can go out there now. The announcement was on the developer community this morning. And we'll do a similar developer preview program, and can't wait to see what you guys do with this and hear your feedback, and we will be responsive to that feedback and meet our commitment to focus on excellence as we deliver the software. Now, I have a question for you, which is, who's heard of Formula E race cars? Fabulous. So there's actually more than half of you. This is the fastest growing area in motorsports, and I love these things. You know, the cars in Formula E don't look particularly different from Formula One cars, but they are really different. They're all electric. They travel a street route, sort of Le Mans style. They can go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2.3 seconds. And this fleet has only been going since 2014. In those 8 years, there's been 3 generations of technology. So a lot of amazing engineering and a lot of amazing innovation. They're incredibly versatile vehicles. They're running on the street. You know, I might not take one to the grocery store because there's no trunk, but I wouldn't hesitate to commute to work in a Formula E vehicle, especially because Terry has provided chargers in the garage. And Formula E has the best safety record of any racing tour. So these are really fast, really safe, really clean, great small environmental footprint, and I think that's a fabulous analogy for InterSystems Iris, don't you? Now, the cars don't look particularly different, but one thing that does look really different in Formula E are the pit crews. The pit crew in Formula One looks sort of like this. There's a guy with a giant hose delivering high octane fuel that spills all over the place. There's people with oil. There's people with lots of nasty things running around. But the pit crew for Formula E looks sort of like this. And believe me, you would prefer to have me on a keyboard than with a big hose full of high octane gasoline. And you may have been wondering why I'm wearing this suit, or maybe you've just said that's Jeff being Jeff. But I'm here to symbolize that we take seriously being your pit crew. We're all, every one of us, in a race. We're racing against our competitors. We're racing to catch the next wave in our industry. And the demands are only going up. So we want to help you win your race. And there are 3 things that determine what wins races: the car, the driver, and the pit crew. you know you have an amazing car in InterSystems Iris. And we know that you guys are great drivers. So I'm going to talk about the new elements of the car, the new way to drive, but fundamentally, I want you to know that we're all your pit crew, not just those of us that get to wear these silly outfits, but the 1,800 of us at InterSystems, every single employee is part of your pit crew. Now, just like Formula E cars, which have continual innovation, faster and faster all the time, we're always making InterSystems Iris faster. This graph shows you release on release performance on a customer's real benchmark in SQL. So it's running the same amount of work in less and less time. Since we started working and releasing InterSystems Iris, which is, believe it or not, only 4 years ago, we've improved the performance on this benchmark by a factor of 6. And since 2020.1, we doubled it. How did we do this? Well, there's a lot of innovation by a lot of people in a variety of areas. Every release, the performance enhancements come from different places. But for this particular release, I want to highlight one area, and for that, we'll welcome Benjamin DeBow.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Benjamin, how are you?
I'm super excited. I'm so excited I woke up very early, just like I would have jet lag.
Yeah, you never know. So I'm amazed. Oh, but before I get into this, if you don't know Benjamin, you totally should. And maybe you can introduce yourself and say, you know, how long have you been in InterSystems? What do you do?
I live in Belgium, so that's 9 hours away, hence maybe a tiny little bit of jet lag. But I work in Jeff's team, so I work in data platform product management, and I'm trying to listen to you, to customers, to find out your problems and figure out how we can solve them, particularly in data and analytics.
Fabulous. So how is it that we got this factor of 2 performance improvement in SQL in this release?
So we have an amazing pit crew that worked really hard to achieve this goal, and I prefer to call it adaptive rather than just faster, because that's really what we've been working on. So in Formula E, you can spend a lot of time in the lab or sit at that bar and analyze computer screens to analyze statistics and figure out the exact line that you have to follow on the track for all the bends and all the curves. And that's also what we do in our SQL Optimizer. We analyze statistics about the data to figure out the ideal query plan to give you your query results. But then, in Formula E, if you're in the race, there's other cars. There's different weather conditions. So there's runtime conditions that are different from what you planned for. And then you need to adapt. The only problem in Formula E is that you don't have like a half hour to figure out what the ideal case is. You have to make a decision in a split second.
So we've added in sort of that adaptive SQL that lets the car adjust to the road conditions as you go.
Exactly, that's what we did in SQL as well. Create an adaptive engine that is able to make a decision to deviate from the default plan if the conditions ask for it. So let me tell you how that works. So if you look at this chart, this symbolizes, or this is measured as a set of about 5 million queries that we run, which were recorded from an actual customer. I spoke to the customers; they're here today, and they're really happy and looking forward to enjoy these benefits. So that's 5 million queries that are running. You can't, at runtime, 5 million times figure out what would be the exact best route. So what we do is we take every query, we normalize it super fast on the client side, and then we check if we've already tried it, and we will use we would try the default plan. What we've done now is in that check, we embedded a super fast runtime plan choice that checks if the runtime conditions, the parameters, the things that we actually normalized away up front, if they require a different plan. And that's what making a fair number of those 5 million queries a lot faster, and that results in a two times faster net product.
That's fabulous. Can you show us?
Of course. So this is a Python notebook. So because, well, we love Python, don't we?
Yeah.
And I was about to upload a data set with a couple million rides in Formula E cars, but then I wondered if how many people in the room would have experience with Formula E driving.
Anybody here driven a Formula E car? They let me sit in one once. But so you're right, that's not a representative thing that
No,
everybody
so
here does.
I stuck to something more familiar. So this is so I stuck to a data set of New York taxi rides, who are also slightly more interesting because the point where they start and the point where they stop is different. So there's more columns to analyze.
Anyone here been in a New York taxi? Okay.
Look at that. So 24 million, almost 25 million records in here, and here you can see what the data is like. So I can figure out how my passenger count is, or how my rides are divided across passenger counts.
So these are number of passengers per ride. Most are one, like you'd expect.
Exactly. So as you can see, the runtime conditions, if you would abstract away all of the parameters of a query, they do differ. Mileage varies. The one customer rides are much more common than the other ones. So if I would force to use the default plan, then I'm going to try and calculate the average fare for a group ride, so more than 2 people, in the early 2020s. So in my data set, it's going to look for, it's probably going to use the index on the pickup time, because that's a really selective field, so it can get me to the right rows very quickly. So that takes about 10 seconds. But now, if I remove the handbrake, if I remove that little flag to override and force the default plan, now I'm switching on adaptive planning. And now I'm doing the exact same query, and if I run it now, if I click the right button, it will, if I click the right button, it will return a little more quickly. It will return in 2 seconds. So that's 5 times faster, because it figured out that the default plan that would go through this particular index is actually not a very good fit for this situation where maybe that condition wasn't as selective at all. And indeed, if I take a look at the actual parameters, at how my data is laid out, I will see that my 25 million records are not evenly spread across the data set. So at runtime, it checks whether the selectivity of the supply parameters actually differs.
So this tells you what kind of index to use in the query plan.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what we did with adaptive SQL. So really a great enhancement, and we expect it to show up for a lot of customers.
Yeah, that's really remarkable. And this is in 2022.1 today, so you can take advantage of it, use it, and use it safely. I can't wait to see what you do with it. So that's what's new.
That's what new.
What's next?
Well, we're going to try and make it faster. So we're already winning a lot of races in the application business, in application use cases. So what we're now going to focus on next is another kind of track. It's the analytics track, and see how we can make those analytical queries faster.
So the idea is we made the handling and the curves adaptive. We made that amazing. Now we've got a straightaway, and we want to help our customers stay at the front of the pack.
Yeah, flat out.
So I understand that a way to do that is with columnar storage.
Exactly.
What is that all about?
So if you heard the stories of Flavio and Gert earlier on, they were talking about application use cases. So if you're updating a credit score, or if you're retrieving a credit score, you're making a lookup for a particular row for a patient. If you're processing a payment for that risk score, you're looking up a couple of rows and you're updating a couple of rows. If you're at the till in a SPAR in Austria, you will be compiling a handful of records. Maybe if your card is really full, it could be up to 100. But that's all data that's handled in kind of a row format. So we'll handle it, we'll store it in a row format, because that's very efficient, and it allows you to do that with very little latency and optimize for these super highly concurrent use cases. However, if all of your data is stored in rows and you want to do kind of population health, and you need to scan a table with 1 million patient records, and you need to have one I/O to retrieve each and every row and then get that one column out, that's not very efficient. For such situations, columnar storage is much more efficient. And also, we've put a lot of magic under the hood. So think about those different generations of your Formula E cars. We're taking advantage of recent advances in both CPUs and compiler architectures to really exploit some of those really cool new chipset level features.
That's amazing. And I know that we have an early access program that starts today to work with customers directly, try columnar, make sure that it's both fast and safe, and help learn how to teach and adapt to each customer's needs, because rows are right for some cases, columns are right for some cases. The cool thing here, like the same philosophy as multi-model databases or multi-workload data platforms, is that you can do both.
Exactly, and all in the same engine. So it's not, you don't have to move your analytics, your data to the analytics. It's all right in the same box, and it's integrated in a really, really neat way.
That's really cool. So I understand you have a special gift for customers that are in the early access program.
So I hope that many people will recognize this game. It's a game where you can play with rows and columns on the same board. So if you're interested in joining the early access program, you can get one of these. Just see me at the Tech Exchange or walk up to the reception desk.
And just scan this URL code.
Yep.
So Benjamin, I know you have a session about columnar later this afternoon, and there's people in the Tech Exchange. Anything else you want to point out?
No, please come and see the session where I'll pick up from this demo and we'll make it 10 times faster.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Okay, so you have then just a little flavor of all the ways that we're working on speed, release after release. But as you remember, one of the key winning aspects for winning races is the driver. So we want to put you in the driver's seat and help you be both delighted and delightfully successful in building applications. One of the things I'm particularly excited about is embedded Python. And we introduced this first with our 21.2 release. We've improved it with the latest release, 22.1. It runs Python, which is now the world's most popular language, directly in the kernel. It opens up the possibilities for many of our customers of a labor pool that knows Python already, a training curve with an amazing ecosystem, millions of libraries you can tag from. Who here has used embedded Python? That's great. It's great to see folks. We'd love to hear your stories. And this early access program, which we held last year, was, from our perspective, very successful. We heard a lot of good things from you guys. We made the product better. We came up with a lot of good cases. And there's a number of sessions here at Summit. But if you haven't used embedded Python, we wanted to show you. And for that, I want to introduce Bob Kazowski.
Hi, Jeff.
How are you? I love your suit.
Good, thanks.
You must
Looks
be
just as good as yours.
Part of the pit crew, I guess. So Bob, maybe you can introduce yourself, say what you do, how long you've been in InterSystems, et cetera.
Yeah, so I'm on the database platforms product management team. I've been here 2 years, so I'm still very new to the organization. But I look after developer experience, so things that developers, operators need to know to be able to run really efficiently, for you to be a great driver of InterSystems Iris.
Cool. So I know that embedded Python is flexible, but I've heard that it's fast, that if I were a Python developer and I wanted to work with data directly, that this is a good way. Maybe you can show us.
Yeah, I have up here, hopefully it'll show up on the screen soon, I have up here a benchmark, very simple benchmark. This is a very common use case in a Python world where you're building a key value store, maybe a session cache or something like that. And in the traditional Python world, you might use a Redis to store all this information. I've written a benchmark that takes a Redis cache, fills it up with 50,000 items, and then does 75,000 reads out of that cache. And then I've written the exact same thing using InterSystems Iris with embedded Python.
So the code looks just about the same.
Yeah.
I love that statement at the top, import Iris.
Yeah.
Is that you can bring it right into your Python environment? Is that right?
Yeah, so what that's doing is that is taking the Iris kernel and loading it into your Python process. So that architecture and that design, along with the speed of InterSystems Iris and globals, is an incredible benchmark. And I'll show you that right now. So here I'm running that Redis benchmark. It's running 50,000 writes. It's running in a container on my laptop here. 50,000 writes, 5,800 a second, that's pretty good. And then reads, a little bit faster, 6,800. So let's do the exact same thing using embedded Python.
Wow. That besides just finishing fast, that looks like it's like 85 times faster.
Yeah, significantly faster with this architecture and design.
Yeah, even I care about 85 times faster, and very, very nice. I also understand that embedded Python helps our customers write things faster. So I have a little task for you. You know that we've been wanting to add helmets to these race team outfits.
Yeah, well, we think safety of all of our drivers is really important, and we want them to be safe and secure while they're going really fast with our data platform.
Excellent. Well, we've been working on this storefront, but it's not really working because we don't have any credit card transactions. I got you an account at oauth.net.
Great.
Maybe you can hook it up, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes. So code that in 5 minutes. I gave this to Benjamin last week. It took him a day. Let's see how you do.
All right. So we have our helmet marketplace with all of the really serious and important helmets that are available. And as Jeff said, he got us an account at AuthorizeNet. And so I just Googled AuthorizeNet Hello World. This is the beauty of Python being one of the world's most popular programming languages, is there are sample code, connector libraries, example systems out there for almost anything that you can imagine. And it becomes a very simple process to integrate that into your existing Iris application or to build a new Iris application. So here I have built a very simple Iris application that sells our helmets. So it says, hey, we've got a client library that we should install via pip. So I will do that right now. And while that's going, I'll give you a little tour of the code as it is. So it's an Angular app. It has a REST backend. For any of you who have used CSP REST applications before and developed them, this will all look very familiar to you. When a new order comes in, that's this new order method that gets called, we currently take the order, we save it to Iris, and then we call this demo.creditcardCharge method. So the problem is that our charge method is not implemented. It doesn't do anything yet. So this method will take the credit card number, the expiration date, how much we're going to charge, and return the transaction ID. So let's see if we go back to our AuthorizeNet sample code. So here is the sample code that says how to get a transaction, how to charge a credit card. So before I do anything, let me just kind of paste that in. And what's neat here is that with embedded Python, I can set language equals Python on a class method, and the body of that is in Python. And of course, I'm coding in front of 1,000 people, and it doesn't compile. So let's see what's going on. Oh, okay, it says import stars only allowed at the module level. So that is a Python language feature. The example code expects to be run as a module. This is run inside of a method. As you can see, it's the charge method. So I just have to change up the syntax here for what the import is trying to do. Now if I save it, hopefully it will actually work. Yes, excellent. All right, so now I've got some basic code in my application. Let me just kind of connect that up business logic-wise with what my application is expecting. notice that I'm not, as I do this, I'm not thinking about, hey, what's the wire level protocol? How do I do mutual TLS 1.3 authentication? I'm not thinking about any of that stuff because their client library is responsible for a lot of that business logic. And all I'm doing is mapping the business logic of my application to the business logic of their library. And this is a very, very common composing pattern throughout the Python world and will really save you a ton of time in developing applications. So I've now parameterized credit card authorization, and now let's just return the right information. So we said in our comment at the top, we're going to return as a string the transaction ID. So where do I get the transaction ID? That in there, save it. All right, shall we see if it works? All right, so I know you all want to drive safely. Jeff is our team's pilot, so I'm going to get him, for his birthday that's coming up, I'm going to get him a cool looking helmet. I think that would look out on Jeff's head. Mohawk feather thing. Put in my credit card number and order, and yay, I got a transaction ID back. Nice.
Hey, Bob, you got 10 seconds left. How's it going?
Good,
Done yet?
good, yeah. I just ordered something.
What?
It's
You're done?
fast. Yeah. This is the power of leveraging one of the biggest development communities out there in the world today. Being able to use all of these pre-built packages, these pre-built libraries in your Iris application to create applications more quickly and let you outpace your competitors.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thanks, Jeff.
Very cool. So if you want to get in the driver's seat, Embedded Python is in the current release. We have training material, we have code samples, we have a lot of ways to help you learn it and use it. Now we've talked about running fast on the track, what we're adding to the car. We've talked about the developer experience and putting you in the driver's seat. In racing, a lot of it is about the data. You're collecting data continually about the car, about the track conditions, about everything. That's what that pit crew is doing on the keyboards. And just like that with InterSystems Iris, we've been focused heavily on analytics. We introduced a facility called Adaptive Analytics this past fall. How many people have tried this? Great. Can't wait to see more and more of you using it. And just as a quick reminder, this is a way for you to do data modeling off of the data resident in Iris, present that as very simple data models for BI analysts, and have it run quite quickly without copying the data. So very similar to our philosophy. And to talk about that and show you that, let's talk to Carmen Logue. Hey, Carmen.
Hey, Jeff.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Nice outfit.
Thank you. Yeah, we're matching.
So maybe introduce yourself, tell people who you are, what are you doing up here on stage?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
My name's Carmen, and I'm part of Jeff's team as well, and we're, as InterSystems, all part of your pit crew, obviously. And I'm interested in reporting and analytics and how people get the information out of Iris and present it to their customers. So that's what I take care of.
Good, so Adaptive Analytics is your baby.
It is, yeah, and I'm so glad we're able to talk about it at Summit because we introduced it during one of our virtual summits, so this is the first time we're able to talk with you about it live. This was a co-development that we did with our partner AtScale, and it's been available now for just about a year as an add-on to Iris and Iris for Health.
Neat, and I know that we're adding on to this
We are.
a new facility, an ability to not just work with BI tools, but also with AI tools.
Absolutely. Would you like me to show you how it works?
Yeah, please show me.
All right, let's do that. All right. So what you see on the screen there is what we call the semantic layer, which is a fancy way of saying that we're organizing our data that stays in Iris, and this is really important. That data stays in Iris, and we're creating kind of a virtual model of that data that is available then to people in their BI tools. So, so this would be, I'm organizing this data in a way so that as a BI user, end user, whether I'm using Power BI, Excel, Tableau, I'll be able to see it structured in a way that makes sense for me, organized and structured. So let's take a look at what that data looks like in Tableau in this case. And you saw that helmet data that we had, or that helmet store that we've been working on. And we actually launched that store at the end of about 2019, so we have quarterly sales data for that. That's what you're looking at here.
It looks like it really took off last year.
It really took off. This was, you know, I think we crossed the chasm there, actually. So, so this is broken down by those different types of, those styles of helmets. So you can see we just started out with a couple of styles, and then we've been slowly adding additional styles, and then at the end of 21, we just took off. So those last 2 quarters of 21, and actually you can see what we're doing now in 22 as well. But what we decided to do at the end of 21 is we knew we needed to plan for 22 because we just hadn't anticipated that level of growth. So we talked to our data science team, and fortunately they have access to that data in adaptive analytics as well. They see it in the same sort of structure. And we asked them to create a model and help us figure out to estimate and to anticipate what our sales would look like in 2022. So here's what they came up with. And it broke it down by those different styles, because obviously we have to buy the, you know, the brush thing for the one helmet, so we had to have that sort of inventory available. So this was our estimate for 2022 that we did at the end of the year. And now, since we've been through about half of the year so far, we decided to take a look at how we were doing.
So the model, the forecast is on the left, and the actuals on the right.
The actuals on the right.
So we're not keeping up. Even the forecast
we are not quite keeping up. And in fact, in some areas, like with the midnight style here, we're pretty far off. We underestimated by quite a bit. And you know, the Pause Patrol helmet just did not take off. I'm thinking maybe it was, you know, our demographic was not Pause Patrol.
I haven't seen a lot of dogs with helmets.
No, yeah, so I don't know. You know, it's probably more for the 5-year-old set. Anyways, so we're a little off here. So we've asked our data science team to actually go back and look at the data that we have now, reevaluate the model that they created, and then push that information back to us so that we could take a look at where we are now and maybe do a better job of anticipating the second half of the year. So let's take a look at that. I'm not sure they've been able to, oops, let me go back. Not sure they've been able to get that in there. Let's take a look.
In there is data that's just InterSystems Iris.
There it is.
Directly there.
Yeah, that's right. So this is all data that's in InterSystems Iris, so it's taking advantage of that, of the power and speed of Iris. So, it looks like it's there. I don't know if you can see it, that revised estimate. And I did ask them to, and it looks like I need to log in again, so let me do that. I did ask them to actually put it into a different metric so that, let me get out of that, so that I could compare it against last year. So let's publish that. All right, so I'm going to publish this new model that has that new metric in it. Okay, and you can see that's pretty quick. So because this is a virtual model, it's going to build it quite quick. So it's all done. And I'm going to go back to Tableau, and let's reconnect. And
people can really tell you're flying without a net here.
Exactly. Well, this is why we do this, so that you know that this is a real live demo, right? That has timeouts and everything. Yeah. So we're going to reconnect to that. And then I'm going to update the model. So let's go look at, actually, let's take a look at this over time. So I want you to take a look on that left-hand side of the screen there. You can see how we've organized all of the data that we have. We put it into these different folders so that it's easy for me to get access to. And I want you to take a look. There's the estimated order quantity there. So when I update the data and just go back to refresh this model, you're going to see another metric pop in there that's our revised estimate. So like I said, I wanted them to, to give us both so that we could do a little comparison. So you see that added there, the revised estimate. And so let's take that revised estimate and throw it in here too, so we can do a little bit of comparison and see what that looks like. So I've got my style estimate, my original one, which is on the top up there, and now my revised estimate from the data science team. And you can see, for example, on the top one, we have a lot of those midnight, the black color there. Down below, though, we've adapted and created a new model that has more sales there, and obviously we're going to go a little low on that pause patrol thing. That just didn't quite work out.
This is amazing. So it saw that it was directly adaptive,
yep,
and that the data sciences folks and the BI folks are using the same model.
That's right, yeah.
So having done some data science, I know that this sort of data wrangling is a big hassle.
Yeah.
And getting at the metrics the business really uses is important.
That's right.
So thank you so much. This is an amazing demo.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yep.
And I know that there is material here about adaptive analytics. There's a session. There's lots of ways to talk to people in the tech exchange. Anything you want to point out to folks?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, Tom Dyer is actually going to do a session this afternoon, Advanced Topics in Integrated ML, which will include adaptive analytics as well, so definitely go check out that session. And the partner that we worked with on this, that we did the co-development with at scale, is also here in the partner pavilion, so you can stop in and see them as well.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah.
So cool. So we've talked about the speed of the car, the facilities for the driver, the data, but of course, we're here to be your pit crew. And we're always looking for ways to make our customers' jobs easier, to make things simpler for you. The cloud gives us an amazing opportunity to do that. And Scott talked about that earlier today. We're introducing hereby 2 new horizontal SaaS services. They're both part of the InterSystems Iris Cloud Services. One is Iris Cloud SQL, the other Iris Cloud Integrated ML. And to show us that, I want to welcome Sam Ferguson. Hey, Sam.
Hi, Jeff.
So Sam, maybe you can introduce yourself, other than as just a member of the pit crew with a spiffy outfit.
Yeah, so I'm Sam. I'm part of the data platforms team in system development. I've been really breathing, eating, sleeping cloud for the last 3 or so years. I was actually an intern before that, though, so my total tenure at InterSystems would be closer to 5, because I came back not just once, but twice.
Well, thank you for coming back. Thank you for being behind a lot of the amazing innovations in the cloud. And welcome to the main stage.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. So maybe you can show us Cloud SQL.
Yeah. So I heard we're in the helmet business these days.
Well, it's a side business. Don't tell Terry that I've been doing this on the side.
All right, will do. So that sounds like a great opportunity for our cloud offers. Iris Cloud SQL, Iris Cloud IML are really about simplifying and packaging powerful Iris functionality into discrete service offerings on the cloud. And in doing so, we really can be that pit crew. We can do all the background work for you to make you get to the finish line as fast as possible and actually get to the work and the insights you care about. So since I was told that we just accepted credit cards, like starting 10 minutes ago, I'm assuming we're starting from scratch here. So I might find myself on a page like this, the Cloud Services portal for InterSystems. When I log in, I'll be immediately greeted by a set of deployment tiles. You see one there already. That's a surprise that will help us later, or if I mess up. But let's start from scratch for our helmet business. So I want to create a new deployment. I'm going to choose Cloud SQL. I'll choose the small size for us. And then I'll also enable external connections so that I can connect to this SQL instance with my tool or language of choice. And then I'll set a password here for my InterSystems iris underneath all of this. Continuing, I see that I'm going to put this on Amazon in US East 1. And let's not name this after myself. Let's name this after our business. So I'll call this the Helmet database. Going to continue, I have a review panel for all those options I selected, and I can press create.
So that was really simple, just a few parameters and click, click, go.
Exactly.
What's happening behind the scenes now?
Yeah, so you've heard us talk about how we have strategies for cloud, both vertical and horizontal. We're really in the horizontal space here for Iris Cloud SQL and Iris Cloud IML. And what that means is that we're building not just scalable, capable, and composable offerings on the cloud, but we're building a scalable, capable, and composable architecture for an engine that produces many cloud services and offerings. And what that means practically is that underneath all of this, we have Kubernetes. Kubernetes is very trendy. You've probably heard of it before. But if you haven't, it's basically the industry standard orchestrator for containerized applications. In our case, it's really important because it is a common and ubiquitous platform across the cloud.
So we can run in any cloud. We can even run on-prem with this.
Exactly. So it's offered as a service in Amazon, in Azure, all of the cloud providers, even Tencent. And then you also can have hybrid solutions or on-prem. And that gives us a really stable platform for which to actually build out services. And best yet, we can make those services built out of composable middleware components, meaning that an offer is not just the stack it resides in, but actually a catalog of middleware functionality that actually makes it work. And that means we can share a code base for these different offerings. In a way, it's only one offering, but parameterization of the middleware components that make a service what it is.
So you've built not just the two new services we're showing today, but a whole machine for building new services so we can do this quickly for our customers in a very consistent way. It also sounds like our customers don't have to become Kubernetes experts.
No, exactly. So what we're really trying to provide for you as your pit crew is the expert knowledge of both a Kubernetes administrator and an Iris expert, all under the covers, doing all the best practices for you, whether that's storage, whether that's networking, security, et cetera.
So how do we keep this safe and secure?
I'm glad you asked. So we actually put security first at every stage for this architecture. So first, we use Kubernetes namespaces to do isolation between customer sections of a shared Kubernetes workspace. We also have encrypted and distributed storage for all of those instances. And then we also lock down the networking of them. So even within your own namespace in Kubernetes, you actually cannot access one instance from another. And then, of course, the actual APIs for the portal you see or from external connections are encrypted end-to-end.
Very neat. So let's see how we're doing. Is the service?
Yeah, we're up.
Posted yet?
So we have our Helmet database. Let's go in here. When we enter in, we'll have that overview page of those options we saw before. And I want to get started with some of our Helmet sales data. So I'm going to log in. And then upload some files directly here in the portal. So I have both some CSV data and also a table definition for some Helmet sales. For larger files, you could use the S3 transfer function here. From your computer, there's obviously limited bandwidth from what you can upload directly, but if you have lots and lots of data, you can do that directly from the cloud. So taking its time. And once these are here, we'll be able to import them. So we'll be able to create those table definitions and then actually populate them.
Yeah, and you'll see that with a lot of our cloud services. This is the same portal, but just in case there's a lot of people here at the hotel using the internet, you do this as 2 stages.
There we go. So now we have our files here. So let's actually do that import I mentioned. So first, I'll do that table statement so that we have something to actually insert our data into. I'm working from Iris. And then I'll choose that.
Wait a second. This went by a little too fast. Go back just a second.
Sure.
That list of places where you can take DDL from or DML from, so that means our customers can bring data from any of these systems really easily.
Exactly.
We've made it really easy to bring data in and work with it in a very simple way. That's neat.
Yeah. So we really want to get you bootstrapped from anywhere as quickly as possible. Let's do that actual import. We'll see in the logs for this that we've created our table. And let's actually put that data in now.
CSV, the lowest common denominator.
Yes. So we want to use that table we just created. And I know the CSV happens to have headers, so I'm going to account for that.
And we're automatically mapping, lining up the headers and the table we defined for customers?
Exactly. Yeah. So now we're done. So I can directly access this table. We'll actually see that table here in the schema tree, and we can actually look at that data. I can execute that directly here. And we have those similar data we saw previously.
It's really easy to load up and get going. What if I wanted to use this from my favorite environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So back on that overview page, I mentioned external connections when I was setting this up. I can go down here, copy this host name, and then I can click this to directly get drivers for many different languages and components. So here we can connect with JDBC, ODBC. I'm going to be working from Python, so I'll download the DP API. And I can then apply that directly to my Python environment. And just in a couple lines of code, I can use that host name, create a connection, and then execute that same SQL statement you saw in the console. And there we go. We have that same data.
Very neat. So this can do anything you can do from SQL.
Exactly.
How about integrated ML? You know, if you're not familiar with it, we've added 4 SQL verbs to make it really easy for a SQL developer to add predictions into their application, and it's really simple. Do we have that in the cloud?
Yeah, so our architecture here actually enables us to very quickly transition from a cloud SQL instance to a cloud IML instance. So there's a friendly button right here where we can enable integrated IML. And then in the background, we'll spin out our current iris, keeping the same data we already have, and then inserting a new iris, which is IML enabled.
Very cool. And if integrated ML has those 4 verbs are create model, train model, validate model, and predict. I know that training takes a while.
It does, which is why we have a surprise. So if I go in here, I have that same data I inserted earlier available, but I also have IML already set up and trained. So I'll do a similar login here, if I can type my password correctly. Here we go, and we have those verbs Jeff just mentioned. So you can directly go in here. These all boil down to SQL, and you actually even have tools here so I can show my trained models directly in the console here. So I have one for actually trying to predict the number of helmet orders we have. And if I go to that prediction, it gives me a sample for how to actually query that prediction model. And again, I can do this in my favorite tool. So if I go back to Jupyter, using this other database, I can make a connection in the same exact way, and I can run IML directly from my tool of choice. And here we see some actual prediction data. Looks like we're doing pretty well. I see our prediction and actual lining up fairly well.
Really neat. So easy to spin up, easy to work with, and very powerful. Thank you so much. It's really cool. Now, there are sessions about this here at Summit. I know you have a session later this afternoon going through the architecture of our cloud services, how they're put together, that machine we talked about. I know there's a session about Iris Cloud SQL at the end of the day, one about Iris Cloud Integrated ML tomorrow. We also have an early access program for customers to get hands-on with this, so just, again, use this QR code. Anything else you want to point out?
Yeah, so if you're interested in this composable Kubernetes architecture, we're talking about it later today. And then we're doing a deep dive into the actual products built on that, both today and tomorrow, with Cloud SQL being today, conveniently right after my talk, and then IML tomorrow.
Thanks, Sam. This is amazing.
Thank you.
So Scott talked earlier today about our progression of new services in the cloud, about the new services we added for FHIR, vertical services in the healthcare industry, and the new services we're introducing today. If you take a look at these services, they are composable as building blocks, just as the services in InterSystems Iris. So the Smart Data Fabric pattern that we've been talking about, you can use with these services. For example, the FHIR transformation service, the FHIR server, the FHIR SQL builder can be used independently, or they could be used in combination. And if you're using them together, we don't duplicate the data. We don't move the data. We just use it where it lies, and we optimize behind the scenes. That's the whole idea of these composable data microservices in the Smart Data Fabric. So that's what's new. You can do this today with InterSystems Iris, or with our cloud services, or both in combination. Where we're going is a new vision that we call Smart Data Services. And I first talked about this at our virtual summit in October. This is a step to compose services really easily in a low-code, no-code fashion, and do it hierarchically so that we can provide some really strong building blocks that are highly performant, highly stable, and built in. You as customers can bring your own building blocks, partners can bring their own building blocks. So watch this space, because you'll see more of this as we use it in vertical applications and as we provide it as a platform for you to build your own applications. So the same themes that we've been talking about now for some time are what you should expect us to continue to focus on. We'll keep working on cloud. We'll keep working on analytics. We'll keep working on developer experience. And we'll keep making InterSystems Iris faster and safer. I'd like to bring back up the folks that are in pit crew outfits, just to thank you all for coming, to say that we're excited about what you're going to do with the new technology. You've got an amazing car in InterSystems Iris. We know you're great drivers, and we're happy to be your pit crew. So now let's go out, race, and win.